A question I see a lot in the drummers community is what are the best cymbals? What do you think, Carlos?
Hey Tyler, thanks for the great question. What are the best cymbals? So real quick, a little bit about me. My name is Carlos Plaza. I am an online drum instructor and the first lesson is free. If you'd like more information from me, you can find me at CarlosPlazaDrums.com. You can send me an email if you have any questions at CarlosPlazaDrums@gmail.com. So let's get into what are the best cymbals. So real quick, the idea of best is kind of silly. Let's get that out of our heads right away. There's no such thing as the best cymbals. There's only the best cymbals for you. So we are not going to talk much about the name brands. I'll mention them, but I'm not going to talk to you about the cymbals in terms of who makes them. I'm going to talk to you about the cymbals in terms of what they're made of, and I want you to think about things in terms of what kind of player you are. So we're going to get to a fork in the road in a second here of two different ways of making cymbals, two different cymbal structures of the metal that they're made of. At that point, we will split into the two different ways of making cymbals, and that's going to make you think differently about what you want to play and what you want to do. Before we get there, you have to ask yourself, what kind of music are you trying to play and how hard do you hit? So the easiest two genres to work with, and then all the other music is in the spectrum in between, is extreme, heavy death metal and jazz and anything soft on that side. So usually most people find themselves somewhere in the middle. I like to play both. I love to play heavy metal and I also like to play jazz every once in a while. But some people are going to find themselves all the way on one side or the other. The other question is, how hard do you hit? So are you naturally a very gentle player and you only hit hard if you kind of have to, or are you naturally kind of like just a absolute monster on the kit and you're smashing everything you see? And that's okay too. But you have to ask yourself that question: how hard are you hitting? Once you get a sense of that, now when we hit this split, you're going to know exactly what we're talking about. Okay, so on this side of my screen, I'm going to put what's called the B8 category, and we'll get to that in a second. And over here, I'm going to put the B20 category. Okay, so what are cymbals made of? Cymbals are made of an alloy. Alloy just means a mixture of metals. You'll see the word alloy a lot. It just means a mixture of different metals. So cymbals are made of an alloy of copper and tin. The more the copper, the heavier the cymbal is going to be. Okay, so copper and tin, that's what we're talking about. Now, in the B8 category, you're probably thinking, oh, I've heard of the Sabian B8. It kind of drives me a little bit nuts that they named a line of cymbals the B8 because it throws things off. So from this moment on, if you hear me say B8, I'm not talking about the Sabian cymbal line, the Sabian B8s pictured here. I'm talking about B8 as in the mixture of metal. The 8 stands for the percentage of tin. So B8s have more copper, 92% copper, and 8% tin. B8, 8% tin. Okay, B20 cymbals are 80% copper, 20% tin. The more copper, the tougher the cymbal is going to be. The less copper, the less tough it's going to be. In a second, we're going to talk about brass cymbals as well, but as of right now, we're talking about bronze. Bronze is a mixture of copper and tin. The majority of the cymbals that you will be playing on are going to be bronze, and they're going to break down into two categories, B8 or B20. And I'm going to say it again because I really want you to understand this. It's all about how much copper there is versus how much tin there is. For those of you wondering when I'm going to start playing here, I will play a little bit of this stuff in a bit, but humor me. I want you to really understand that the point of this is for you to understand what a cymbal is made of, not even so much like how it's built, but what it's made of, and that's going to tell you which of these two categories you should be thinking about. And again, if you're a very heavy hitter and maybe you've broken cymbals in the past and you're wondering what the heck, maybe you're better off with a B8 cymbal. One of these, and we'll talk about the different models in a second, but maybe you're better off with a B8. If you play softer naturally, or you play music that is not super intense and super heavy, and you're probably better off with something in the B20 category because you're going to have more of a musical range. So here are some options. So the B8s are very bright, have a lot of attack. They have high frequencies. They cut right through. You're going to hear them piercing almost, very sharp, very bright is a good word for it. And they don't have a lot of nuance to them. You're going to hit it and you're going to hear the sound right away, even if you hit it gently. The B20s have more tonal response. They're smoother, they're softer, they're darker. And I like to think about things in terms of the crescendo. If you can hit a cymbal very gently and it has a very gentle response, and then as you get louder and louder, it starts to build, those are probably B20s. You can't do those so much on the B8s because whether you're hitting it hard or soft, it's gonna be clangy, and I use that word kind of a lot. It's gonna like immediately attack and be bright and explosive. So those are the two sounds. Again, if you are a heavy hitter and you are a metal player, you're probably better off with B8s. They're gonna cut through those heavy guitars and that heavy bass, so you want those cymbals to cut through. They're going to be bright, they're going to be explosive, and they're going to be thick, and they're going to be ready for you to beat on them. Conversely, if you're playing most other genres where you're not just laying into a crash, you're going to be able to explore your B20 options, and you're going to be able to find cymbals that are smooth and soft and silky and have all these different tones to them, because you're not going to be so worried that they're going to break. So again, if I haven't made it clear already, we're talking about how long a cymbal is going to last, how hard you're going to hit it, and the types of sounds that you want. So here are some examples of the B8s. We have, of course, the Sabian B8s, the Zildjian ZBTs, the Peisty PST5s, and then some examples of B20 are the Zildjian A Custom, K Custom. Once you understand how the cymbal is built in terms of the metal composition of it, yes, there are a lot more things going on in terms of the lathing, how thin the cymbal is, because they can make a cymbal extra thin and it's going to be very bendy and it's going to have a lot of really interesting, unique sounds coming out of it. But you better not use that in a metal setting or it's probably going to break. If you're just eighth notes all day on it and it's super thin, it's probably going to break sooner than you'd like it to. So you have to think about it in those terms. I'm going to quickly mention that obviously we're talking about bronze cymbals. Another option is brass. If you get one of those starter drum sets and it comes with cymbals with the kit and it has no name on it, those are made of brass. That doesn't mean that all brass cymbals are cheap and crappy. Those ones, certainly everybody would agree that those are crappy, but at least it gets your foot in the door, so it's okay. But there are brass cymbals that that are a little bit tougher. The Meinl HCS series and the Zildjian Planet Z are two examples of brass cymbals, and they feel a little bit more like B8s. They're a little bit clangier and thicker, but some of them do have more expressive tones. So there are brass options as well, but the majority of the time we're talking about bronze. So again, I'm trying to make this very quick. I really just want you to have an answer when you ask yourself, how do I know what cymbal I'm going to buy? The question is, how hard do you hit and what kind of music are you trying to play? And that is going to help you figure it out. So if you are a metal drummer and you know you're going to need something thick, go for a B8. Not B8, the Sabian brand, but a B8 composition, meaning 92% copper, 8% tin. Use those for your crashes because you're going to be beating on them. You don't necessarily need that for the ride. You might be able to get a B20 ride because the rides tend to be bigger and tend to be thicker anyway, so you may be able to get a more responsive ride if you go for a B20. What about splashes? Let's say you're a metal drummer and you use splashes a little bit, but you're not going crazy on your splash. Okay, so maybe you don't need a B8 composition splash because you're not really hitting it that often and you want options. You want musical options. You want something that's going to be expressive. Okay, so maybe go with a B20 splash. So you don't just have to buy all B8s or all B20s. I actually, in the making of this video, realized the reason why I broke this cymbal, which let me go get it. I bought, when I joined this cover band that asked me to play with them, I knew I needed a big cymbal that I was going to be able to kind of lay into for a couple certain songs, and I needed something bigger because the more I hit it, the less I wanted it to wobble. So if you're using a 14-inch crash and you're hitting it a lot, it's going to dance like crazy. The bigger the cymbal, the less it dances. And I needed something that wasn't going to move a lot. So I went and bought a big 18-inch crash. I didn't think about the thing I'm telling you to think about, which is how hard am I going to lay into this cymbal that I'm buying? The answer was a lot. It was 2 punk songs that I was mainly focused on for this purchase. And I knew I was going to be beating on it, but I didn't think about this. Well, guess what? I bought a really thin, look how much this bends. Okay, it bends a lot. It's thin. An AAX Explosion Crash. Very smooth, beautiful, shimmery. Listen to that. Listen to how much movement there is there. It's not clanging and bang, bang, bang. It's smooth and shimmery, even with the crack in it. Okay? It cracked on me. It cracked after certainly not enough shows for me to go, oh, well, that's okay. Eventually I knew it was going to break. No, it broke way too soon on me. Why? Because I didn't think about things in these terms. How hard am I going to be playing this cymbal? What am I going to be playing it for? And that's going to tell you. If it's going to be played a lot and you're going to be smashing it, get a B8, don't get a B20. Okay, or else it's going to break sooner than you want it to. If you're only going to be playing it occasionally, if I had put that cymbal in a different spot on my kit and I was just going to be using it occasionally for a little bit of an accent or maybe a double crash moment, and then I was going to go back to my main crash, that cymbal would have been good. It was not optimal for what I was going to be using it for. I should have bought a B8 instead of a B20. Okay, so the different things you're going to be doing with these cymbals are going to tell you what kind of cymbal you should be getting. Now, for everybody else in the middle of that spectrum, where you're saying, well, I like to play both, there are options for you as well. But instead of me telling you, oh, go get the Pisces 2002s, which is actually one of the cymbals they say fits the middle of the road, instead of me telling you like, oh, that's the one, I recommend at that point, that's when you should do your research and look up cymbals that are good for multiple genres. Call your local music store, go to your local music store and tell them you are right down the middle. Sometimes you play metal, sometimes you play jazz. You want cymbals that can handle both. And chances are you're not going to buy a pack of all of one type of cymbal. The smart money says to buy a B8 for a crash that you're going to be laying into like crazy. A B20 for a crash that you're going to hit occasionally or splashes that you're going to hit occasionally, or a ride that you really are looking to just have some expressive sound. You're not going to be crashing it like a maniac. Okay? These are all things that you need to think about when you're buying your cymbals so that you know exactly what kind of longevity that cymbal is going to have, depending on how hard you're going to hit it and what you're going to use it for. So, without further ado, let's move over to playing some of these cymbals. I have a couple options for you guys that I'm going to be playing, but now that you already understand for the most part how you should be thinking, this is more so just so you can hear a quick example of some of these sounds that we're talking about, some of the words we've been using to describe them, like, clangy, bright, intense, lots of attack, or warmer, softer, darker, drier. So let's get to it. Okay, so check this out. This is the B8 14-inch hi-hat. So B8 obviously means 8% tin, 92% copper. And this is going to be bright and intense and not very subtle. And check out how, we're going to do side-by-sides here with the HHX. But here's the bell. Listen to how bright it is, how pingy and specific. That's what happens when I crash it. And the same is going to apply to all of them. Okay, the same is going to apply to all the cymbals. I'm going to pull out the B8 ride here in a second, and you're going to hear it. There's no subtlety here. This is very bright, very explosive sound. Okay, very bright, very explosive. Let's switch over to the HHX. Okay, so the HHX here. Here's the bell. So a little bit more subtle. Again, I wanted to compare the brightest of the options. The smaller it is, the brighter it gets. But listen to the subtlety here if I want to go kind of soft. Okay, that's got like options in its mood. If you want to hit it softly and you want to get some softer feel, you're going to get it. The HHX, unlike this B8, the HHX is a B20 bronze. Okay, so 20% tin. Okay, so it is thinner. It's less copper, so it's less clangy. And I'm actually going to, let's do a side by side here. This one's got mood, and this one's got options. And this one has less mood, less options, more clangy, high-pitched. And I like these. I'm using the word, sounds negative when I say clangy, but it's clangy. All clang, bang, 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 right? Which is, and it's heavier, it's more copper. This cymbal's gonna last longer than this cymbal, right? I mean, they're both hi-hats, so they're gonna last a while. But an HHX crash is gonna last less time than a B8 crash. The B8 crash is heavier, it's thicker, it's more ready to be beat on. The HHX line, for example, is thinner, and so they're gonna last less time. But they're smoother and silkier, and sometimes that's the sound that you want. Let's take a listen to the B8 Splash real quick. I want you guys to hear exactly what a B8 Splash is going to do. And you're going to see, again, it's a perfect example of a clangy sound, okay, which is okay. I like a clangy splash. All right, check out this B8. Clangy. It's immediate. There is no subtlety here. No matter how soft I hit it, I don't get any smooth like texture, any like soft kind of crescendo, right? Whereas an HHX, I know this is out of frame, but listen. I can sort of build it up here. You can't. It's going to give you the same attack no matter how hard you're hitting it. It's clanky. Okay. Instant clank. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. Actually, in the making of this video, I realized that I actually want probably a 16-inch B8 bronze cymbal, not the B8 line. Again, as we've talked about, I think it's kind of funny that Sabian called these the B8s because it kind of confuses things. I don't think any line should be called the B8 or the B20. That's like Tesla saying, this is the Tesla model car. We know it's a car. Give us a fun name. My Saluda cymbals have cool names. This is the Saluda Earthworks. So you're like, oh, Earthworks, that's the line. Anyway, enough of that rant, but I do think that that's kind of confusing. Let's take a listen to a B8 ride. So this is a B8 ride, which is a B8 bronze. So it's thicker, again, clangier. Okay. Very thick, very intense cymbal versus the HHX B20 cast ride. Again, there's a certain subtlety in a B20 cast that the B8s do not have, but there is a certain longevity that any B8 cast is going to give you. Okay, that's it. Things that I didn't talk about that I'm going to link below in case you're wondering. More about the alloys, more about the types of ways that cymbals can be made. There's other options as opposed to B8 and B20. There's B10s, B12s. Again, it's all about copper versus tin percentage. The actual way that the cymbal is made, cast versus sheet metal. Again, I have links below and you can go click on those. The point of this video is not to go all the way in depth about cymbals. It's to help you figure out how to buy a cymbal. And we've absolutely covered that. How hard are you going to hit it? What kind of music are you going to play? B8 versus B20. Any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me, CarlosPlazaDrums@gmail.com. And as always, the drummers community and I are working very closely together to try to bring these videos to you guys. We have the Ask a Teacher segment, and we are constantly reaching out to you guys asking what kind of questions would you like to ask a teacher. And we're putting videos together for kind of the most important questions. So feel free to reach out. If you're not part of the newsletter, go to drummerscommunity.com and join the newsletter, and you will be able to kind of join in on this community. Thank you so much, guys.